Yeah, anytime.
Hello, a pinch and a punch for the first of the month, and welcome to the news and views with the EV Café. 30 minutes of what's happening in sustainable transport with expert analysis from the EV Café crew. Brought to you this week in partnership with Plug Me In, home and depot charging for winners. Now then, you can see that this isn't a backdrop. This is temporarily my home. I'm in Lanzarote and extremely lucky to be here, but I'm joined by my wonderful colleagues. Pablo, how are you, my friend?
I'm very well, but not as well as you, you lucky sod.
I know. Anybody who wants to complain about my carbon footprint, crack on. Sarah.
That's what Paul did. I'm fine too.
Good. And Samuel, you're on your phone today.
I am indeed. Shall I do jazz hands too? Just here you go. Paul.
Yeah, please. Oh, that's lovely.
Thank you. Now we just got to get you to do funner as well.
Never. I know it's a word, but
Right.
in my head it's not.
Okay, so anyway, they're the opinions on a stick. Grab a cuppa and plug in for what's happening in clean transport this week. Because coming up, we bring you the EV Café Village at Fleet and Mobility Live on the 3rd and 4th of October. Government incentives need to prime the used EV market, says Richard Jones. GridServe hits 50 hub milestone. We'll be going live and approved to Sam Clark for more on that story. The UK is lagging behind in van and HGV transitions to EV. I'm sure there'll be opinions around that. And First Hydrogen undertake fleet trials for hydrogen vans. Are they future or are they fantasy? Let's see. Any road up. The full agenda for this year's Fleet and Mobility Live on October the 3rd and 4th is now available to explore so that delegates can plan ahead to get the most out of their time at the show. The UK's leading fleet exhibition and seminar show, brought to you by Fleet News, is back once again at the NEC near Birmingham and features a packed schedule of 18 seminar sessions and more than 30 expert speakers at the two-day event. And we just happen to be some of those expert speakers. There's also me, of course. We'll be holding a session on stage on day 2 and hosting the EV Café Village for both days with partners and friends of the EV Café, a curated space with us where you can showcase how you improve the world of electric vehicles. Paul, it's an exciting opportunity to come and exhibit at a relatively low cost with us in a major exhibition.
Do you know what? I've been really excited about this EV Café Village concept ever since it began. It just curates a space that is safe.
You mean ever since you came up with it? Because it was your brilliant idea.
Well, okay, well, thank you. I wasn't going to take the credit for it, but it was.
I don't think it was your son. No, sorry.
Anyway, moving on. The fact is, for people that are attending a show like that maybe are dipping their toe in the market or budgets are a bit challenging, this gives a great opportunity to have lots of people coming and hopefully chatting with, each one of the exhibitors. But then, let's be friends together. Let's collaborate. It's a fantastic opportunity. And we get to speak on the Wednesday at lunchtime, so we'll have a chat with everybody. But a great opportunity for our sponsors, but for people that are new to the market, developing their products, all of those kinds of stuff. And we get to hang out with us. Someday.
That's the thing, Paul, isn't it? We get that place to hang. Sarah, we have a lot of people come to the EV Café Village just to be that kind of hub, that centre where you can get away from all of the sell and come and just chat with people and friends and discover the art of the possible.
Yeah, I think it's a really nice place for people to actually have that conversation privately, which is nice, very safe space. There's so much going on there. If you click it, I'll put the link in the chat in a minute. I'm on with Melanie from ZapMap, and we've got Cenex, and who else is on with us? Oh, apparently I'm from Amtronics, but that's the Inspiring Confidence of Public Charging Infrastructure on one of the days. So hopefully we all get to give as much exposure to this event as possible, because it's one of my favourites each year.
And let's just say hello to a few people. Let's not go to Sam because it really annoys him. Let's say hello to Michael Barton, Paul O'Brien, Paul Kirby, who's he? Farron Gandhi. Farron, you're here every week. Oh my goodness. Greetings from Morocco. Zachariah Al-Hush. What a name, and thank you for joining us. Andrea Richardson, Laura Hustwick-Wilkes is always here, bless you. Tristan Dorman. Now that's an interesting name. Dan Martin, Dave Bushnell, Mark Main, Laura Freeb, buongiorno, Pam Hanlon, knew she wouldn't be far away. If Laura's here, Pam's here. Omi Sharp, Rob Dustin, Harrison Hughes, Hugh Maguire, Mark Flingham. Wow, you guys, you just blow me away. Thank you so much for joining us. Right, let's crack on. The former MD of Lex Autolease, Richard Jones, is arguing that financial incentives for battery electric vehicles aimed at fleets should be scrapped in favour of support for the used car market instead. Battery electric vehicles accounted for 1.7% of the used car market in Q2, yet achieved 16% of the new market. June was the 6th consecutive month of year-on-year EV price decline, with average EV prices falling by around 5,000 since January and nearly 9,500 since their peak in July 2022. So the question is, will government incentives make used EVs more attractive, or is it still a behaviour change challenge mixed with giving certainty about things like the battery state of health? Sam, you're into the vehicle side of things heavily, and new leasing, subscription models, salary sacrifice. The used market is something that benefits from all the activity you do. Do you think that government incentives for used vehicles is the right way to go?
I'm grateful for you coming to me first, John, but honestly, I think Paul's probably got a better answer to this than I have, because he's closer to the fleet market. But I think that's a comment I made on the news a week or so ago as well, is that the market is genuinely so in its infancy still that it's an incredibly very difficult thing to unpick in terms of what we should be doing, because it evolves on a weekly basis. So the chap from Lex formerly of Lex may be right, but also he may be wrong, because the market moves and shifts so often. But anything that incentivizes people to get in EVs is good, but with me. But how best to do it? Honestly, I don't know the answer, because I think it's an incredibly complex thing in such a growing and embryonic market.
You heard it here first. Sam didn't know. And I came to you first, Sam, because the next story is about GridServe, and it gives you plenty of time to be getting your words together. Paul, your thoughts on the used market?
Well, this gives me cause for concern that somebody can do this, because first of all, the incentives have already stopped for new electric vehicles in the sense of government incentives. There is tax incentives, but those tax incentives would follow on from a benefit in kind perspective to the used vehicles as well. So they're there in both instances. It's very important to focus on the used market, because the used market is what gives us our residual values for the new market. If you've got a positive used market, you have got people hungry for the vehicles and demand it, that pushes the price up, which pushes that lease cost down at the new end.
Paul, can I ask you a question on? May I ask you a question on that? I agree with what you just said, but at the same time, the residual values on vehicles, if you look at a Nissan Leaf that's 4 or 5 years old versus a Nissan Leaf of today, they're two different things. So how do we ascertain the appropriate residual value for new vehicles when the old generation is a completely different thing? Not completely different, but very different.
But Sam, this has been going on for many years. So take a Mondeo for instance. A Mondeo would get a facelift. The old Mondeo would drop proportionately, but then the new one would have a premium because it was a completely new model. Now we will see the same sort of thing, but probably accentuated in this used market, because the steps are going to be bigger and they're going to be meeting greater need. But what we also see in the used market is a much lower requirement in terms of mileage and technology. And actually, some of the ADAS stuff and things like that can add a lot of expense into maintaining that vehicle. If a windscreen goes, it will cost you X pounds more because of all the and ADAS stands for something driver assistance systems, adaptive driver assistance systems, but they're very technical and it's very costly. Used vehicle purchasers don't want that. They want to buy a vehicle and they want it to get them from A to B. So there is a very, very different dynamics in the market. But one word of caution in all of this, that somebody's saying, right, we've got to change everything about the new market, but we still haven't accomplished what we need to in the van sector. And this is very car focused, and we need to separate cars from vans so that we don't do what we always do, which is any action that is aimed at the car market just falls onto the van market. It's completely the wrong thing to do. And we have separated the grants, which is good news, but it worries me when we just call for this change when we haven't addressed each sector separately. And we need to think about vans and trucks differently than we're thinking about cars. And cars, I agree with him, is broadly going in the right direction.
Paul, you're absolutely right. And Gary Comerford picks this point up very articulately. He says that...
Unlike me.
Not at all. He says that which has the greatest carbon benefit? Is it a car that sits on the driveway for 95% of its time, or a last mile delivery vehicle which is constantly being used? And that kind of underlines your point that if we target the incentives to those vehicles that have the greatest negative impact and transition those, we get a better bang for our buck.
Completely, and it's an argument that we've long had with commercial vehicles, that in the city are 16% of the traffic, but 32% of the CO2 output. It's a significantly larger proportion of the CO2 emissions and the nasty particulates as well. So vehicles older than 2016 in the diesel world, which is of course a lot of vans, are far more emitting, and hence we're taxing them off the road through ULEZ and other bits and pieces.
Sarah, you've got a lot of friends, you're saying in the chat, who are currently buying second hand. What's the reason for doing that? Is it that there's a lower capital investment required to get
simple as that? They've been waiting, desperately waiting. My friend picked up a second-hand Leaf, which still comfortably does 160-mile range for him and his family. He's very, very delighted with it. Another was an Ioniq, a second-hand Ioniq. And they're both those examples both said they wouldn't ever go, even they were driving 20-year-old diesels, both of them. And so now they've just gone, actually, I see the benefit. Actually, I can afford it, and I want to be in on this game. And they're both quite sustainably minded people, but they thought that holding on to the vehicle for the longest possible time was the better way to save sort of their carbon footprint as families. So yeah, I think you can't knock it from a private car perspective. It's a good thing to be reusing the existing technology rather than trying to force them to buy or lease brand new.
And Zachariah from Morocco, I've got to say, welcome to the EV Cafe. Your point around incentives is extremely good. Incentives should be used with moderation. The industry should be self-sustainable. So this is market forces that need to work, and we need to drive the costs down through better processes and better use of materials. And that incentives for infrastructure is the only way that the government should be supporting the EV transition. Broadly agree with you, my friend. Well done. Thank you kindly for joining in the chat. Now then, GridServe story. We've got to have a GridServe story because he's Sam here, and we love a bit of Sam. GridServe has hit the milestone of having 50 new electric super hubs built or in construction this year. The company also has dozens of additional sites being prepared for production for the facilities, which typically include 350 kilowatt high powered charge points. The new hubs are spread across England, Scotland and Wales, providing high power charging on some of the UK's busiest routes, as well as electric retail hubs at popular shopping destinations. And frankly, we love them. We go now live to Sam Clark, Chief Vehicle Officer of GridServe, for comment. Sam, you must be delighted at the prospect of having those 50 delivered.
I am delighted, but with some degree of irony, this news has sort of passed me by. In fact, I think I found out after you did in regards to LinkedIn posts, because I'm slightly in it and therefore don't necessarily see these things. But yeah, it's great that we're able to declare how much progress is being made. And I won't go on about GridServe. It's not the GridServe show. But it does demonstrate in charging infrastructure perspective that there is, we raised $500 million a few months ago. Other charge point operators are doing the same. So there's plenty of money available. But what's more important is not just about, hey, look, we've raised loads of money, but we're doing something with that money. As I've always said, and I will continue to say, it's better to do stuff and talk about it than talk about doing stuff. So the ability to be able to declare that we've got 50 sites either installed, up and running, or in construction at the moment is just a really, really good sign to demonstrate to the wider industry that the infrastructure is not just getting better and better; it's doing it at a rapid pace. And the other thing, which is also, I think, news, and I was talking to some of the senior colleagues on this morning, is Trustpilot scores for someone like GridServe. We're now at 4.2 out of 5 stars, and the guys have worked phenomenally hard to now be the second highest in the country. The highest is slightly eyebrow raising in regards to their position. I won't dwell on that one. But just the appetite, the understanding from the industry, the recognition that things are growing at a rapid pace, and the fact that the consumer market is happy about it, points all in the right direction. So onwards and upwards, not just for us, but for the other forward-thinking companies as well, like the Ospreys and the Instavolts of this world. Crack on, because we're making progress now. And last month, and I've said this again many times, but because it was August, was a record month. Well over 170,000 charging sessions in a single month across the UK, which is phenomenal. It's one of the busiest networks in the world. So we're incredibly happy, and we're very happy that people are happy that we're doing it. So yeah, industry wide, let's just keep going, because it is working, it is getting quicker, and it's an exciting place to be.
Thank you for not going on about GridServe. Paul, when I say GridServe, what do you immediately think? Give me a word that sums up the GridServe offer and proposition.
Just Sam, when you speak, can you just lift your mic off your zip? It's just crackling, but that was fine.
Thank you.
Okay. What do I think when I say? Do you know what I think? I think innovator, and I think disruptor. They're coming to market with a lot of challenging stuff, and they took on a tough task with the Eco Highway, or whatever it was called, and
Ecotricity,
the Eco Highway, kind of the whole 9 yards. It was a tough challenge, and I think a lot of people have painted that challenge with GridServe. So GridServe's challenge to turn that on its head has been a tough one. I mean, there are challenges sometimes with the amount of power that you can get out and different things, but I think that is all part of this transitional focus, and we should absolutely encourage that continual innovation, because every time you see a couple of Ecotricity charge points over in the corner, often you're now seeing development, another area in the service stations and places like that, which are putting 10 or 6 or 10 or however many high power chargers in as well, which is great. And so innovator is the one word that I've used in amongst the 100 that I probably just said to summarize GridServe. There we go.
And just to clarify as well, there are no Ecotricity chargers anywhere in the country anymore. The Ecotricity electric highway is now the GridServe electric highway, and we replaced every single charger everywhere with new ones. So, but you're right, Paul, we've got pockets of medium power chargers still, which are legacy but new, and then we're ramping up by having a hub in the same site now, where it's got 6 or 12 350 kilowatt chargers as well. So yeah, it's all going well.
Thank you. And Sarah, what do you think of when we say GridServe, or you see the GridServe sign?
Credible. Yeah, they're all, even if it does fail, there's always someone there to help you. Every charger everywhere fails at some point, so it's okay. But I think the scale at which you've rolled out is brilliant. I really enjoyed the graphic, actually. It was very honest. It said, this is how many we had last year, and this is how many we have right now. And it's not just, they're not all operational, but they did, again, state that. So I really like it when people call a spade and put the spade in the ground.
Good on you. Thank you kindly for only using about 30 words.
No worries.
Nick Ansell. Good morning, Nick. Can I just thank you for your comment? He says, morning all, loving the detail you guys are going into already. Keep it up. And he also goes on to say, looking forward to Cenex LCV next week. Paul, I think you're going to Cenex, you not?
I am. I'm really looking forward to it. There's a lot of good stuff going to be going on. A lot of what I like about LCV is that they're always looking ahead and they're trying to celebrate. So it's not all about just manufacturers exhibiting. It's about them putting on exhibitions that demonstrate the future or demonstrate alternatives that maybe not everybody's considered yet. So I think it's a great place to come along, learn about where the market's going, kind of ask those difficult questions. The hydrogen question will be being asked both in light and heavy worlds. We need answers to those questions. We need understanding for those things. And LCV is a good place to go to get all of that.
Absolutely. Right, now then, commercial vehicle time, people. So strap in, because this is going to get interesting. I know, Paul. We do it every week now. You've become a thing. There you are, vans. You happy?
Yeah, I'm thrilled.
Thank the Lord. Right, okay, the UK is falling behind its schedule to phase out the sale of new commercial vehicles powered by internal combustion engines, according to the BVRLA members. In its latest industry outlet survey, the trade association found that 88% of its members think the UK is behind schedule on phasing it out for HGVs. For vans, 93% of respondents say the nation is behind schedule in phasing out internal combustion engine vehicles. No respondents believe that the UK is ahead of schedule for the respective targets for vans or HGVs. New petrol and diesel cars and vans will not be allowed to be sold in the UK from 2030. The government will also end the sale of new non-zero emission heavy goods vehicles less than or equal to 26 tonnes from 2035, and all new non-zero emission HGVs from 2040. Are the UK's largest fleet operators, including BT, LeasePlan, Openreach and Royal Mail, right to be calling on the government to be setting ambitious sales targets for zero-emission vehicle sales in the lead up to this van as the way to make it happen faster? Let's go to Sam first. What do you think?
Yes, I think they are, and we need all the incentives we can get. I like Paul, I'm very close to this market at the moment, and the appetite is very, very strong. We just need to give them the comfort of knowing that it's deliverable, which as a wider industry we are. So yeah, we need to push. The climate emergency, as we're in, will not go away, and so it's absolutely imperative that we do everything we can to drive this forward.
And Sarah, from a public policy perspective, do you think that targets are the thing that we need to make stuff happen? Is legislation the right way to get stuff done, or are there quicker, better ways?
No, I think there's only so many times you can whip people. I do think this is a carrot game. And I feel like, oh, have I just died? That does happen to me.
No, you're all good.
I suddenly went funny on the screen. And speaking to people who are opening fleet hubs specifically for some of the fleets that you mentioned, I think that it is the charging game that's causing the concern about switching. I think people are waiting for as long as they can to right till the end of that sort of switch. Most people are on a 2-year cycle, 2 to 3 year cycle for their vans. Having said that, it is fun to spot electric vans around and about. I think it's quite inspiring when you do get to see that. It reminds me of when EV cars were starting to show themselves. So I'm not worried. 2030 feels close, but we do have time. So I'd rather see people incentivized than whipped.
Oh, now then, incentivized or whipped, Paul?
Oh, whipped every time. No, but so the incentive whip thing, I think they're a dual thing. We've got ULEZ, clean air zones, all those kinds of things which are perceived to be a whip, but we've also got on the other side of that scrappage schemes, grants around the vehicles, and also grants around the charge points. We need both, and we've got the big funds around the rapid charge fund and the levy fund, although not sure that they're getting to where they need to be. When we look at the market, the car market is absolutely on its way, and I think the 22% for cars, which is the ZEV mandate, which hasn't yet been agreed, and if somebody would just get off their hands and actually stick a signature to something, that would be great. Get clarity and certainty. But vans could be tricky. Certainly from a manufacturer basis, Ford are probably still, albeit they've got the Ford e-Transit, are still less than a couple of percent of their total sales, and they've got to get to 10% in terms of vans for next year. Other brands like Iveco or even the Stellantis group as a whole will probably get to the 10% without too much difficulty. But there will be pockets of big fines potentially if we don't achieve that, assuming the ZEV mandate gets signed off. So I think it's definitely a incentive and whip kind of scenario. We need the clarity that things like the ZEV mandate bring.
And the ZEV mandate could bring in fines of up to £15,000 per vehicle.
Per car, 18,000 per van.
Thank you, Paul, for the clarification. I only care about cars.
And I only care about vans.
Now, in the chat box, are you a carrot person or a whip person? One word only, carrot or whip or carrot. Let us know.
Or stick. If you're going to do it, it's carrot or stick.
Yeah, but you said whip,
John
so
prefers the whip.
I
I'm
just
allowed
went
to
with
pick
whip.
myself. Move on, please.
Sarah Sloman, Miss Whiplash. Let's move on. First Hydrogen is opening up fleet trials for its hydrogen fuel cell powered vehicles to parcel delivery companies. Following initial fleet operator road trials in the UK with firms including SSE and Rivas, the company's proof of concept demonstrator vehicles are planned for operational trials, with several parcel delivery companies looking to enhance their growing greener fleets, starting late Q3 and Q4 of this year. First Hydrogen's engineers highlight that while the vehicles were designed to sustain longer journeys, they have been equipped with hybrid engines, hydrogen fuel cell and battery, which suits shorter drives in urban and suburban areas. Sam's shaking his head even before the question is asked. Hydrogen for vans. There is a view that big vehicles, HGVs, planes, ships, maybe, but hydrogen for vans? Really? Let's start with Sarah and allow Sam's bile to boil. Sarah, hydrogen?
Yeah, my usual stance on this, having looked into a few studies, which you have to do, you can't just take one story and be put off or turned on. But I do think there are use cases, and I'm sure, I was just Googling then, I'm sure Ecotricity have just announced a plane, but I'm stopping there because I realise I might have got this a bit wrong. But isn't that...
Yeah, that's right.
So it's happening whether we like it or not, but it still feels niche. It doesn't feel mainstream. I wouldn't think it would be something to solve what we were just talking about with the commercial vehicle side of things. So I think it's a little bit, it's a tiny bit.
Okay, and Paul, your thoughts?
So, hydrogen for vans, I'm unconvinced. I've seen the reports, I've seen both Rivas and the SSE things, and there are elements of it that give you some hope that actually it could work in certain scenarios, but they are very limited. And I think even First Hydrogen actually, ironically, have electric vehicles in the background as well. They're not just focusing on hydrogen, and they do not for 1 second claim that hydrogen is the all-in solution. But what you see is the ability to go further, but they haven't fully addressed the payload issue yet. But they've got over 300 miles range. With their mixture of a hydrogen fuel cell and a battery as well. And the payload issue is one thing, and obviously the refueling, but then you've got the efficiency and the actual cost of both the hydrogen and also the vehicle, which are desperately uncompetitive at the moment. At the point at which it becomes competitive and there is a solution and we're using purely green hydrogen, and that's a big can of worms there, then it does become a possibility in a very small percentage, but everybody believes it's a very small percentage.
And Sam, let's go. 3, 2, 1, off you go.
All right. Well, firstly, I'm really buoyed by Paul's comments, because I was about to jump on and go, hang on a minute, don't forget the fact that it needs to be cost effective and competitively viable. And you said that at the end, which I'm delighted, because I'm always hammering at you for that, because ultimately it's an economic decision and it doesn't stack up. It's not even close. Look at Glasgow. They've just reversed their decisions up there to introduce hydrogen commercial vehicles in favour of battery electric, because it doesn't make commercial sense. And the bit I was shaking my head about, John, is the absurdity of logic to say, oh, well, let's have a hybrid hydrogen electric vehicle for short journeys. Remove the hydrogen. You don't need it then, do you? It's an electric vehicle. You just put another engine in for no reason whatsoever to inflate the price, make it impractical, uncompetitive, and an entire waste of everybody's time for the purpose of nothing at all, when you could have just had an electric van in the first place for short distances. So that's why I'm shaking my head. It's absolute nonsense. And it's the last grasp, I think, of a hydrogen market, trying to find ways of engineering a possible, logical, maybe use case for something, but just give it up. It's not going to work.
This is my favourite bit of the show. I write the script on a Thursday and I send it out to everybody, and I make sure that item 5, the last item we will cover, will trigger Sam every week. If you look back at previous ones, I do this every single week, and without fail, story 5, boom, off you go.
Brilliant.
Thank you, Sam. Now then, we've had a few votes on the carrot or whip thing. So Ron Godfrey likes the carrot. Andrea McKenzie loves the carrot. Leon Gomez, he's a big fan of a carrot. Not many whips. So let's ask our crew. Carrot or whip? Do you prefer harsh legislation or incentives to make change happen? Let's start with Sam. Carrot or whip?
It's undeniably both, and it's a blended approach that needs to flow over time. It is. You can't have one or the other. It needs to be a blended approach as a market progresses.
A whip made from a carrot. Paul.
I've got to agree with Sam completely. You cannot separate the two, because otherwise everybody will complain that it's just whip, and then the other people will complain it's just carrot. We need the balance of both, and I think what we're seeing in the market is a good playing out of that. We need to keep the balance, and we need to keep the hammer down and create clarity, but whip and carrot.
Whip and carrot, and apparently hammer as well. Sarah.
I'm now thinking maybe a carrot cake with walnut with icing would be a perfect representation of this. We're good without having had a breakfast yet, so really that would be very nice.
Oh dear. And we'll finish with a comment from one of our viewers, Bob Murphy. Hydrogen has a role somewhere down the line, but not in cars or light commercial, and he's a carrot all day long. Now then, if you've got any clean transport, PR or news stories you'd like us to cover, please send them to us at hello@evcafe.org. Until next Friday, it's goodbye from me. It's goodbye from them. This has been an EV Cafe production brought to you this week by Plug Me In, because I'm in. Are you in? Are you in, Paul?
I'm in.
Sarah, are you in?
I'm in.
Sam, are you in?
I plugged in.
We're all in. Thank you kindly. Now, other sustainability news services are available, but this is just funner! Hey, the EV Cafe is truly blessed to be partnered with Geotab EV Civil Solutions, the AA, Churchill Insurance, Plug Me In, Sperry, Hydrock, Interval, Kersha, and McIntyre Hudson. We are the EV Cafe, supporting the transition to clean transport. Enjoy the rest of your day and your weekend, wherever it takes you. Until next Friday, I'm in Lanzarote. Stuff a lot of you. Goodbye! Rob Dustin.